Welcome to Backstage Money, real world finance for musicians. I'm your host, Jason K. Powers, and this is where music and money collide with honest stories and practical lessons from people who make it work. So let's get to it. Today, I am joined by Shawn Duncan, a powerhouse drummer whose career spans decades on US and European stages. He was a founding member of Sunset Strip legends Odin with past runs, including Bullet Boys, Killer Bee, and more notably now, Social Disorder and LA Guns. You would recognize some of the other things you may have seen him in was the decline of Western civilization, the metal years as well. Legendary. Shawn has logged dozens of releases and lives by the mantra, have drums will travel. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Yeah, glad to be here, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. You know, I always like to jump into these and just kind of have an origin story conversation and talk about kind of how did you get into music to begin with?
My father was a songwriter and he was a performer. He always was playing music. He had a big hit in 1962 called Let's Go, which you hear at every sporting event across basically around the world. And it's that hand clap, pop, 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 pop. Let's go.
Yes.
My dad wrote that. So we grew up with around instruments, and my dad would have rehearsals with some band or whatever he was doing in our garage sometimes, or we'd be dragged to the rehearsals because there was 3 of us. And I would always get into the drum set, and he never like forced music on us. Mm-hmm. But we were surrounded by it. I mean, everywhere we went, there was music. My dad, it's funny, I'm wearing this shirt, but my dad had one of these old VW campers, and he had a stereo in there, and we'd be listening to Chicago and Gladys Knight and the Pips, and I can go on and on about the music that we were surrounded with. So as we started to get older, I started dragging my mom's pans and Tupperware out, and I started beating on that stuff. And Jeff my middle brother, who's the guitar player, Norman Saint. Jeff gravitated. My father was a guitar player, and Jeff just went straight to the guitar. There was no and if or but about it. Mm-hmm. So that's and then as time went on, kind of getting long story short, me and Jeff was in a band in junior high school called the Termites, and our drummer got grounded. But he left his drum set there because he said, if you guys want to still play, and you can find a drummer to do it. And so Jeff goes, oh, my brother plays drums. Well, I never had a drum set up to that point. I only beat the shit out of Tupperware. So anyway, I went in and I did it. And it worked. And then 2 weeks later, I was better than that guy, basically.
Wow.
And they kept me. And we did a talent show. And that morphed into Odin because it was mine and Jeff's band. Odin was our band. And Jeff met Aaron in junior high school. He joined. And then Randy joined. And then Odin that was kind of the beginning of everything. But it all started because our father was really, he did a lot of stuff behind the scenes in music as well. He did a lot of arrangements for Bone Howe, for the association, he worked with Jim Messina. There was a lot of history there that we got to see, and we were just surrounded by music. That's what did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just that exposure.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of people who are, they're carpenters. Their father were carpenters, and because you're raised in it and you develop an interest if it's something that intrigues you, and you get really good at it because you're learning from being a little guy as opposed to learning a new trade at, 18, 19 years old. Yep. It's a different beast.
Right. And so as this evolved, what kind of became the trajectory for you guys, and what was that like as you kind of start growing out there?
Well, I mean, this was when Odin started to take off. This was the early 80s in the Sunset Strip. And things were just getting hot. I remember seeing Motley Crue on a Wednesday night at the Whiskey
Mhm.
with about 100 people.
Mhm.
And then from there on, everybody, from Mickey Rat, who turned into Rat, Dante Fox turned into Great White. I was there from the beginning, but I was 16 years old. And Odin, we earned back then there was a lot of kegger parties,
Yeah.
which were just the best thing in the world to go play, right? And so we did a lot of kegger parties, and we developed a really strong following. And we had another guitar player. We had two guitar players early in the origins of the band, and one of them was very good friends with Chris Holmes from Wasp, and Chris took a liking to us, and so we were pretty industrious, and we managed to make our own little EP, little 45 thing. And once we got that, then Chris put us on a bill with Wasp at the Troubadour, opening for Wasp as direct support for a blood drive that had tons of advertising and everything.
Wow.
And that kind of took us to the next level. Back then, there was no such thing as pay to play. Okay.
Mhm.
You had to have a draw or you weren't getting into a club. That was it. That was a bottom line. And so we had one. We had a solid draw from all the parties we did. So the club started seeing, hey, these guys bring people. Then next thing I know, we played the Palace Theater with Armored Saint and Malice. And that was my first really big venue. That was about, I think the Palace holds 2,500 seats.
Mm.
I don't even remember the show. I was in like a bubble.
Yeah.
And then we did shows with Keel and it just kept going. Okay. Then we recorded another record. When that came out, the band had a really solid, we were headlining the clubs in LA at that point. And this local radio station called KNAC started playing a song called Shining Love by Odin a lot. We were on heavy rotation.
Mhm.
And then next thing I knew, we were opening up for Dawkins at the Palladium.
Mhm.
And then we were going on tour with Alcatraz and Uli John Roth. So it was it just kept going until it didn't, you
Until
know?
it yeah.
And then we recorded another record, but that took forever to finish in a nutshell. And then we got asked to do the Decline movie. And we did that movie. And then it wasn't long after that we split up.
Mhm.
We just decided this isn't weird. We didn't get a major deal. We made all our own records. So we had like a distro deal with Green World, and then we had a licensing agreement for our last album with JVC Victor.
Mhm.
So we never really got an official big label behind us.
Mhm.
So we were kind of tired and frustrated with that. And then Jeff went, and immediately when the band broke up, Jeff was in Armored Saint. So Jeff's been in Armored Saint for over 30 years. And that was basically the trajectory of Odin
Mhm.
and what launched all of us and the connections we made from that period of time
Yeah.
is what led to other things, along with our reputation and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff, right?
Mhm.
So that led to various things that I did in my life after that. Me and Jeff had a band, I'm going to say have because we never really broke it up or anything, but called DC4, which is still me and Jeff. My youngest brother Matt plays bass, he plays on it, and Rowan Robertson plays guitar. So we've done that band did 5 records. Again, we did them all.
Mhm.
Um, and because it's what you do, it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like it's very punk rock, I guess, that you just
Yeah.
say, "Fuck it, I'm gonna do it," you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And, that's kinda how the attitude we always had.
Yep. Yep.
So we did that, and then I did the social s well, no, then I did the Bullet Boys. Bullet Boys was interesting. because on that tour, one of those tours, we went out with Gunzo, which was Tracy Guns and Rudy Sarzo's project. And that's where I met Tracy. And we became friends. We used to stay up late and chat and stuff. And we became friends. And over time, it led to me being in LA Guns.
Yeah.
That connection right there did it.
Yeah.
Right. Relationship. Occasionally I'd text him and say, "Hey, how you doing?" You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And just keep in contact. And then one day out of the blue, I got a text from Tracy. It says, "Hey, what are you doing this summer?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you need?" You know, "Oh, I'll get right
Yeah.
back to you." And then, you know, it was
It-
like a day later, I got a call from management, you know, rattling off, "This is what it pays. This is where you're going to be gone for 9 weeks."
Uh-huh.
I'm like,
Like, oh,
"Okay." That time I was working, I've always had jobs throughout my life, really. I worked for a long time as a caterer in the entertainment business and movies and television.
mhm.
I did that, and then I was a stage manager for another studio for, like, at that time. And I'm like, I just took the gig, you know, and I
Yeah.
was like, "We'll see what work says."
Right? Yeah, I'd be like, I hope I still have this when I get back.
Yeah,
Well,
you know?
that's a good point you bring up that you kind of alluded to it there twice over was about the relationships. You know, you
Yeah.
you have these experiences with in your earlier years, but then life happens, right? And the band doesn't
Yeah.
continue on.
Yeah.
And you are able to, for lack of better words, utilize those relationships to see, okay,
Yes.
well, what's next? Right.
Yes. Well, you know, me and my brother had this conversation, and we were talking about how important your 20s are into the development of your future when it comes to relationships with people, because that's when you're out there the most mingling, you're meeting people, you're getting involved in things that, and all these people eventually will either come up or go down, right?
Mhm.
So those relationships are the ones that over time will help you the most, are the
Right.
ones you make during that period of time. Of course, you have professional relationships that come as you get older that help too. But really that foundation of that early time period, especially in music and especially at the time period where we were fortunate enough to be. I mean, to be in the Sunset Strip,
Right.
you know, in a headlining act in 1983 to
Yeah. In
85
that, in that
was
era,
yeah,
especially.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you knew everybody, you met everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, but I think that's the same way in any event. That's what college is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably pretty neat for you. I would suppose thinking back to, okay, like you said, we saw Motley on a Wednesday night
Yeah.
at Whiskey, and fast forward now, and you guys are playing there, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and I imagine sometimes it's got to be like, my gosh, I mean, being there, attending the first time, and then going, well, now we play there.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's funny because I've played at that particular venue so many times, I can't even
yeah,
count it anymore. But and the bands I've seen there besides Motley, I mean, I saw Alice in Chains in their early years there. I saw Soundgarden there. I saw Nirvana there. I saw Hole there. I saw Smashing Pumpkins there. I mean, I can go on and on.
yeah,
Um, and it's an iconic landmark venue
mhm,
in the country, much in the world. Technically, it's like the Cavern Club of United States.
right,
But the place that really knocked me out is when I played Irvine Meadows, which is a huge 18,000 seater here, outdoor place where I saw, you know, Iron Maiden and Anthrax and Dio. I can go on and on again. And then I played that stage I actually played it with Bullet Boys twice. And that blew me away to
yeah,
be up on there. And then there's been some stages when you go through the country, like we played with LA Guns. We played the Elvis, you know, old Tropicana, or not the Tropicana. What was that called at the time? I forget. Oh, the Hilton stage when he had that residency at the Hilton.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
And they had the little square on the stage where he stood, and they still have a little like a mirror like makeup table, like a small one where he would, get himself fixed and stuff and every once in a while and go back to.
yeah.
And you're like, wow, Elvis was here, right? And then there's
Right.
this place called the Surf Ballroom of all things. And that was the last place the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, and Richie Valens played. That's where they flew out of there, and that's where they died.
Yeah.
And that's where the famous phone call was made, all that stuff, and you play those places with that kind of history,
Mhm.
and it's mind blowing,
Yep,
you know.
yep.
And there's been a few others that you go on stage, you're like, wow, this is important. This is an
Yeah.
important place. There's a place in Hampton called the Casino Theater. Casino, yeah, I think it's the Casino Theater. Anyway, you walk into that place and there's this big plaque, and it shows everybody that's played there from Black Sabbath to Led Zeppelin, Alice. It just goes on and on.
Yeah.
And you're in the backstage area, and every once in a while, you just kind of have to go, wow, John Bonham walked here.
Mhm,
Jimmy Page walked here,
mhm,
right? And
mhm.
all this, it does go through your head because ultimately we're fans, and that's the whole reason we do this anyway,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And you hear that a lot.
So yeah, man. I mean, we're music fans.
Yeah, yeah,
I listen to music every day constantly.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you
Well,
know?
it's gotta be humbling
Oh, it
to
is. It's
be in those
amazing.
kinds of, environments and in the walking kind of in the footsteps of some of these
Yeah.
people and going,
Yeah.
"My gosh."
You're totally, it's an honor. And at the same time, it's mind blowing. And then, you know, you're just happy to be there because you get to
Mhm.
go play the show.
Yeah, that's right. Right, that's right. Well, so let's talk about for a minute, talk about humbling and have these conversations a lot because I think inside the industry, a lot of people go, "Yeah, I get it." But outside, like just on the fan side, we talk about, you know, there's life beyond the stage.
Yeah.
And okay, when you're not touring, when you're not actively making money, you've got to make money. And so,
Yeah.
like you mentioned early on, you've spent a career of also working other places and doing various things. You
Yeah.
know, you mentioned did you say you were chef or you were
Yeah. Location. I worked in location catering,
okay,
which is
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's a good job. Um, and I mean, I cooked for, you know, Bruce Willis, Corn. I can go on and on,
Yeah.
right? Big shows because it wasn't just movies it was commercials, it was videos, it
Mhm.
was concerts, it was all that. So I did that for a while, right after I had my son, when I had my son, and that kind of changed a lot of my ideas about money.
Mhm.
Once I had that kind of a responsibility, it changed the way I looked at life, you know?
And
There's something very important about that happens to you when well, I would hope most people when you have a kid,
yeah,
you
just
know?
that I gotta buckle down a little bit
You know,
kind of mindset or
it's kinda like that, but for me, it's like all I knew is I gotta take care of my kid,
yep.
and myself, right? So it just changed. It was weird. I've said this 100 times, but when I was in the room when my son was born, and I physically felt something change.
Mhm.
And it, after that, I just kind of everything, some things became more important than others,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
Priorities,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
But,
So,
but it was great.
yeah. So on the need for just filling the gaps, like what I guess because you've stayed in the industry the whole time, but
Yeah.
you'll go out and you'll fill in the gaps in various and sundry ways. And I mean, is there anything you can speak to on that side? Just this is maybe knowing when is the time to
Yeah.
okay, I need to go get a side job, job,
Yeah.
or or I can hold out a little bit longer for this pursuit, or, can you talk about that for a minute?
I, I think everybody should follow their heart and follow their dream as much as you can.
Hmm.
I also think, I remember some because I location catering ain't no walk in the park. It was
Hmm.
18-hour days,
Hmm.
uh, common. So it's like you work really hard, but I said, well, it enables me to do the thing that I love to do.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the means to take care of yourself, you're not going to take care of your career. You're not going to take care of anything else. You're in survival mode at that point. You're not in progress mode,
Yeah.
right? So you have to take care of yourself first. And when you're in panic mode all the time, trying to survive, you, you're you're in a mode of thinking that prohibits you from seeing the bigger picture.
Hmm.
And you know what I mean? So you got this tunnel vision of, oh my God, I got to pay my rent. Oh my God, I got to do this. Oh my God, and it's deflating and it will kill your dream. So you have to have some sort of ability to realize that it's art, but you don't have to be a starving artist.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's the main thing. There's this glamorous starving artist. I think it's bullshit that people use. Well, you shouldn't be starving. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
you shouldn't be barely surviving. You should at least take care of yourself
Mm.
so you can do the thing that you love with properly, with
Yeah.
passion and with yeah, I'll go do that, right?
Right. Right.
you
Well, and
know?
it seems like certainly since, you know, the game has changed a little bit too since the early
Yeah,
80s,
absolutely.
and the ways you approach this industry, I think, has shifted a little bit.
Well, it's that I feel for people who are younger trying to develop a career in this current climate.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's definitely a harder time getting exposure, going out there. There's the pay to play thing. Everybody wants money, but they don't want to give you any, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
And you need the thing is you need money.
Yep.
Cymbals cost money when I break them. Sticks cost money.
Right.
Strings cost money. I mean, everything costs money. Gas to get to the venue costs money.
Yep.
So you need money,
Yeah. Yeah.
and generating it that's you got to be really creative nowadays, in my opinion, um, and connected.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute. When I first met you, it was at a Denver show, and you guys had the meet and greet going on. You guys
Yeah,
had you also, which I appreciated, you hang out at the merch table,
yeah,
and that's how we met, actually, was chit chatting back there. And I always think that's awesome when bands can do that and get back there and just hang out and visit with the fans. But you had a pretty good merch table going on there, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. You have merch is your lifeblood out there. To
Okay.
be honest with you, you have your guarantees are basically covering your general expense, maybe, but your merch is kind of what you know. In my situation, I'm in LA Guns, but it's Tracy and Phil's band, right? Tracy and Phil own the name, and it's their band. So merch wise, me and Ace are usually out at the table because they allow us to sell some of our stuff. And that money we make from that, like I sell the drumsticks and I'll sell a head and a few other little things. And that helps me buy more of that stuff like drumsticks and breakables. I call them breakables.
Yeah.
And because I break a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And and that supplements my paycheck.
Mhm.
right? So that's not coming out of my paycheck. It's
Mhm.
coming out of that. And that makes a huge difference at the end of the tour when you have to re-up your supplies and you get to come back with a full paycheck as opposed to losing, you know, 15, 20% or so on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So merch is a big deal.
Yeah.
And again, you're marketing yourself too. You're out there, you're meeting people, and you never know who you're going to meet.
Sure. Sure.
You know, you just don't.
Yeah, merch is a lifeblood for a lot of people, right?
Yeah,
It's just a good, consistent supplement
yeah,
to what you need day to day. What has
yeah.
been
Yeah,
Go ahead.
exactly. It covers the little things that add up. You know, it's really what it does. At least for us. I mean,
Mhm.
and for a band like Guns that does very well on merch, it enables the machine to run
Yeah.
um, again and again and again,
Mhm.
as opposed to we're not gonna we need bigger guarantees, which people don't get. I mean, the money for guarantees isn't what it used to be. So you supplement it with merch, and that's kind of how it works now,
Okay.
and the meet and greets.
Can you speak to maybe those getting into it, just kind of give a general understanding of the guarantee side of things and what that can look like?
Well, basically, a guarantee is what the band will get as a guarantee to do the gig. So, say we're going to give you, you know, however many thousands of dollars to play the show. Okay. And then there's usually a clause, a sellout clause where you might get a bump. And within that, also your writer is there and, various other, what the club is or the venue is going to supply, sound guy, light guy, all that kind of stuff is all in there. So you get 50% deposit goes to the agent. You get the other half the night of the show,
Mhm.
usually before you go on. That's another thing. Get it before you go on stage.
Okay.
So that's important. There's a story I have about a friend of mine. He had told me that he worked for Michael Schenker, and Michael Schenker's looking at his phone before he goes on, and then he goes, "Okay, we can go on now," because the money showed up in his account.
Mhm.
And yeah, so so many that when people get screwed over, it's because they don't get paid before they play. They're a club owner's not going to not pay you. You know, if you haven't gone on stage yet, he's going to have a lot of really angry people out there.
Yes.
So that's kind of and you're just telling them to live up to the end of the bargain, really. But that's how the guarantee works. So the guarantee, whether it's however many shows you have in a week, has to cover your nut for the week. And you got bus rental, you got driver, you got crew, you've got band members, you've got gas, fuel, food. And that's just, I'm just scratching the surface off the top of
Right.
my head.
Right.
Things go wrong, flat tires.
Yeah.
We had a bus catch fire. So, things go wrong.
Yeah.
And, you miss shows because of stuff, bad weather or this or that. So, it, that's why merch is important because it helps carry you through those things that happen.
Mhm. Mhm. How
You know,
about the meet and greet side? What's your opinion on that?
I like meet and greets. I find that people we're pretty friendly with them and like to meet people. Generally, like the band in and of itself, the guys are pretty congenial and like meeting people.
Yeah.
So for us, it's part of the gig.
Yeah.
You know, it's become a part of the gig, and that again, that money it goes towards the bigger nut. All that money goes towards the bigger nut. And at the end, what's left over it basically enables the owners to keep going and to keep doing it.
Mhm.
That's just how it is.
Mhm.
We're not on a retainer or anything like that, but we're allowed to use the name for what if we get hired to do something. There's plenty of perks in it for us,
Right.
right? And then again, I can sell my own merch and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
works out great.
There's a lot of opinion. Everybody we talk to is, I mean, there's a pretty wide variety of opinion, I guess. I guess there's really only two you can have: do it, or do them, or don't do
Yeah.
them. Charge for them or don't charge for them. That kind
Yeah.
of thing. And from a fan side, everybody sure they would like meet and greets free, but from a support the artist side, you go, yeah, I would love to pay for a meet and greet. And
Well, you know what? Let's put it this way. If you want to meet the whole band together,
Mhm.
that's going to cost you,
Sure,
right? If
sure.
and I'm talking about being a part of a band. I'm not talking about, being Brett Michaels, for instance, who people just want to meet Brett, right? It's one person. And if he did those for free, there would be no show.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's earned the right to charge people for the meet and greet, in my opinion. Okay.
Mhm.
Does he need the money? Maybe not, but that's not the point. It's all you're still marketing yourself and you're still putting a value on your brand.
Mhm.
So I get it. But if I'm walking around and somebody wants to come up and say hi and take a picture, I'm never going to say no.
Right.
Ace won't say no. Johnny won't say no. Tracy's, I've seen him do it.
Mhm.
I've seen Phil do it. So it's a different situation for the meet and greet, and if you just see somebody and you want to say hi,
Right.
am I gonna? And again, we're at the merch table 90% of the time. Me and Ace are. We talk to
Mhm.
people all the time. So, and there's plenty of photos of us floating around together.
Yeah.
You know, so that it depends on the person. It depends on the personality, and it depends on I understand people who don't think people should pay for something like that. And again, for a personal one, I don't think anybody should pay. But to meet a whole band and get everybody together at a particular time, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you talk about marketing yourself in a way? What has that been like maybe over the years in trying to just, you have the relationship side to throughout your career, you've built these relationships and some of them become fallbacks and some of them become next steps and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. But just as a musician and what you do, obviously LA Guns is a big name, and marketing yourself in general. How important that to you, and what kind of stuff do you do that helps?
And, it's just a weird world right now with social media. I'm old school. Everything I've ever done has been primarily through connections and
Mhm.
a network,
Mhm.
friends. Um, I don't really try to market myself. I don't look at it that way as much as I look at it. If I have some, I call them casualties after a tour,
Mhm.
I'll sell those, and sign up and that kind of stuff. But I just feel like, if you're just real and who you are, you're kind of marketing yourself with social media nowadays.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's just, it's just how it is. So, if you follow me, you see a bunch of food and dogs, and then you'll
Yeah.
see music and
Yeah.
that's basically my whole social media thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. You follow
traveling because
follow
I like to
follow
travel.
Sean on social media and you'll be hungry. You'll be
Yeah.
like, that is delicious, delicious all the time.
Totally.
Posting some good looking food
Yeah.
out there. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's really I don't really actively market myself in a like to reach a big broad market.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
I try to keep my relationships with my friends, and I don't even go out as much as I should to
Mhm.
shows and stuff, which I need to do more. I
Mhm.
should anyway, but I mean, it. I just don't, and I should. Like I said, I should. There's plenty of stuff
Yeah.
going on. I'm in LA.
Yeah. You're right. No shortage. No shortage.
Yeah.
Well, what about other business opportunities that have worked for you, such as endorsements?
Oh well, endorsements are great. and you're endorsing their product. That's what you are. You're saying this is what I play because I like it.
Mhm.
And that's the only stuff that any endorsement I have is because I like and use that. I've never gone, there's some serial endorsers that'll just take anything they can get, and I've never been into that.
Mhm.
And then I have some relationships that are more of like an artist deal where you're not necessarily on a roster, but you still get the perks of being on a roster.
Sure.
I guess it's kind of weird,
Mhm.
kind of a weird thing to explain. But endorsements are great if you really love the company that you're working with and you
Mhm.
believe in their products and you use them. Otherwise, you're just, why bother? You
Mhm.
know, I mean, and nothing's free anymore. Okay. Back in the 80s, people were just like bringing these stacks of symbols and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything was free. Your sticks were free, heads, everything was free. So it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
You're still buying. So I buy my symbols. I have an agreement with Sabian. I buy them. I have an artist agreement, but I buy them. I buy my drumsticks. I have an endorsement agreement. I buy them from London, a drumstick company. I buy my heads from Korean drum heads. You know, and they're all artist agreements. They're all artist deals. So it's good. You know,
Mhm.
and it's extremely helpful. So, those relationships are important, you
Mhm.
know, especially like I said, when you're involved with a company you really believe in, you really love their products, those are the ones you really want. And for me, it's always been about breakables,
Mhm.
it's always been about heads, cymbals, and drumsticks.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Those
Do you
cost
find
money, man.
they're usually for the artist agreements, are they you getting them wholesale basically, or are you
Yeah,
what can those look like for those who don't know?
well, they can look, depending on the company, they can look at anything from 50% off retail to cost. It just depends on your deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen all kinds of sorts of different ones.
Mhm.
But the bottom line on something that you use a lot is that it saves you a lot of money.
Mhm.
And it's if you like it and that's what you use. I mean, I've been with Aquarian for 20 years and I've used Aquarian drum heads for 20 years.
Mhm.
And they're very good to me. And again, if I didn't like the heads, I wouldn't. What good is that to me?
Yeah. Right. Right.
you
Right.
know, it's just
Right.
it's just how it is.
That's right.
So
How has it helped, filling in the gaps, like when you just came off a tour with LA Guns, and then when we were talking, you just picked up a cruise, right?
mhm.
And you've done those a couple times,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
legends thing, and
Legends of Classic Rock. It's actually Terry Alou, Chuck Wright, uh, Jake Fawn was a guitar player, Chris Turbis was a keyboard player, and I was filling in for Greg D'Angelo, who's the drummer in that band.
mm,
So he was also an old friend that I met while on tour with Bullet Boys when he was playing with Piercy.
mhm.
So he called me and said, "Hey, you're going to be free for want to go on a vacation for 2 weeks?" Basically, what he told me.
Yes.
I'm not kidding. I said, "Okay, yeah," but I literally like was gone for. I was still on the road, and I had a 2 week window of being off the road, and then I was back on
Mhm.
that, which is great. I love doing. It's almost like a good come down after a tour to do something like that.
Sure.
Because when you get off tour, it takes a while for you to like. What do you mean I got nothing to do today?
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
it's you're in a traveling circus, man, and you constantly have stuff to do when you're on the road. I don't care if it's an off day. You got something to do,
Mhm.
whether it's your laundry or whatever. You
Yeah.
got something to do.
Right.
Got to fix stuff.
Mhm.
So, but when you get back, so that was kind of a good break. But yeah, that's one of the things that I'll do. I also play in an Alice in Chains tribute because I like to play. I didn't start doing this because I didn't want to play,
Yeah.
play my drums. I want to go out and play. So
Yeah.
I do that too, and various other fill in stuff. And I have no ego when it comes to, I mean, it's got to pay something,
Right.
but I have no ego when it comes to going out and doing covers or playing with a tribute or whatever. What do I care? I'm playing drums. I'm having
Hmm.
fun,
Hmm.
you
Doing what you
know?
love.
Yeah. And again, you don't know who you're going to meet,
Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
You don't know what it's going to anything is going to turn into.
Hmm. Hmm.
So being out there is important
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
whatever form it is, just
Yeah.
being out there.
Where do you think the struggle points are? We've kind of talked about filling in the gaps with side work, at a job, filling in the gaps with things like merch, meet and greets,
Yeah.
uh, doing the cruises, picking up what you can pick up, right? Which is a lot of that is generated through relationships.
Yeah.
What's maybe one of the things you've seen in the industry in the last 15, 20 years? I know the game has changed, right? From the 80s, 90s, really,
Yeah.
to now when it comes to money and musicians. The game has changed. And so, what's some of the, I guess, one of the major struggles you see for musicians and maybe advice that you would say, look, I've seen so many people run into this. So, you can get in front of it by dot, 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 whatever that is from your
I,
vantage
I
point.
it's really hard to zero in on something because, you know, a lot of my life in this industry has been winging it.
Mhm.
There's no rule book for
Right.
musicians. There's no how to. If there was, there'd be a gazillion. There's so many musicians out there, incredible, incredibly gifted musicians who will never see a big stage, and it's all because of circumstance. Somebody once said that making it in music was 90% luck and 10% talent,
Mhm.
and being in the right place at the right time. Literally, I mean, you can almost anybody who's ever made it in music knows about that being in the right place at the right time situation that happened. Now, knowing to go through the door is a whole nother situation,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of people who there's opportunity and they don't walk through that door. That happens a lot. You might not realize because again, you're in survival mode, so you don't realize that that's an opportunity because you're too busy looking for your next $20 or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
You know, and opportunities comes, and when it comes, you have to be open to it to see it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think that's really it. And I think the other major, it's the goal. I call it the golden rule: is don't be a dick. And realistically, that carries more weight than just about anything else.
Hmm.
People don't want to work with people who are jerks and who are assholes and who aren't somebody you want to be around.
Hmm.
You want to be, especially in a band situation, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Last thing you want. Yeah, I've been in those situations. So, it's. I'm glad I'm at the point in my life now where I could be like, I'm gonna go do something else.
Yeah. It's a picking and choosing.
Yeah, yeah. It's a way better. I'm happy.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. 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 Yeah, and that is a conversation that is had almost every show, which we've talked about it already, relationships, right? But
Yeah,
not just relationships, it's be good to people, you
yeah,
know? It's
yeah.
it's
I mean,
it
and why not? Why
yeah,
not?
be good to your
I've
people, be
seen
good
it.
to your fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just be decent, man. Be a nice guy. Treat people with respect. They'll respect you. Respect is earned, and in a minute, or your respect is earned over time, and you lost in a minute. It just by one stupid remark for some stupid reason could cost you who knows what, you know?
Mhm.
And there's no reason to be like that anyway, Just be a kind person. It doesn't hurt.
Right.
It'll only help you.
Right. Right.
I'm not saying, to take shit from anybody. That's not being a
Yeah.
dick.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a difference.
You can be kind and stand your ground and not get
Yeah, that's
steamrolled
right.
and
Be
walked all
brave,
over. And,
be
yeah.
brave, be bold, be courageous.
Yeah.
But just you don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to be an ass to do that.
Right. Right. So, what is maybe some closing? I'm gonna make you the financial advice guy for a second here, but what's some closing maybe financial advice you would give musicians who are in the industry? Maybe some don'ts, or definitely try to as they build their career.
Well, like I said, if you're constantly in struggle mode for your art, you need to find some sort of way to make your art fun. Because and it's not fun when you're struggling. You need to take care of yourself first. And you know, look, there's people who go to college and work two jobs while they're in college to put themselves through college. There's no reason that a musician or an artist can't go work a job or two and still do what they want to do. It's an excuse really not to do those things. And you have to take care of yourself. Opportunity won't just offer you $100,000,
Yeah.
doesn't it's a dream, and it's a beautiful dream, and I hope you obtain it at some point.
Mhm.
But the fact of the matter is, you have to be able to financially support yourself to enable you to do the thing you love without stress. If you're stressed out in trying to make it in and you're not going to perform 100%, you know? Something's going to suffer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at least meet your basics.
Mhm. 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 Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let's take a second and tell us what you're up to, what you got coming up. 2026 is a big year ahead. Got some things lined up.
Yeah. So I have a couple shows this month, two with LA Guns and one with my Alice in Chains tribute called Memory Lane. And then some point next year, I can't divulge too much information, but there will be a new LA Guns thing coming out next year through Cleopatra. And then we start gigging it looks like, I haven't got my full calendar. So it looks like we start sometime in April. And then we're supposed to go to the UK in November. I know there's one show booked, a big festival that we're playing in November. So in England. So those are some of the things that are around the bend. It's going to be a busy year.
Yeah.
This year was insane. It's going to be just as insane next year.
Yeah. Yeah. You have anything coming up with social?
No.
Yeah.
Wait, what was that
Social,
again?
the social disorder doing anything?
No, I'm waiting for Anders was supposed to send me some songs. This all comes. Anders was okay. Anders was in Killer Bee when Killer Bee opened on the Gunzo tour. Okay, it was Killer Bee, Bullet Boys, and Gunzo, and that's where I met Anders. And one day I got a call from Anders. It said, "Hey, can you do a tour with us in the UK? We need somebody to." I go, "Yeah, I'll do it." So they flew me out. I went and did this tour with them. Then it turned into recording a record with them. Then it turned into recording the social disorder thing because he had other ideas.
Mhm.
And that's how that whole thing came. It's all because I wasn't a dick on that tour.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. Good. All right, man. At the end of each episode, we wrap with what we call final riffs. It's just a few rapid fire questions, quick answers, just to see what you come up with.
Okay.
We'll dive through it. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, man. All right, final riffs. What was your first concert you ever went to?
It was called the California World Music Festival. It was 2 days at the Coliseum in LA, California. And the headliners on the first night was Van Halen and Aerosmith. Van Halen 2 came out that week. The second headliner on the second night was Ted Nugent and Cheap Trick. It was Dream Theater or Dream Police tour. The other bands that were on it were Toto. Toto played both days. Cheech and Chong were the MCs. Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, Boomtown Rats. It goes UFO. Okay, so that was my first concert.
Good. That's a big one. That's a lot of
Yeah.
bands. I remember a lot of those. All right,
Yeah.
who was your biggest musical influence growing up?
Probably my dad. To be honest with you, just because he surrounded us with it. We were surrounded with music, and he did teach us a lot about how to listen to other players and how the importance of what a song was, as opposed to like jamming, right? And that being solid and being in time was more important than how your fills and your same thing with guitar. Your rhythm was more important, because if you start out learning on guitar, you start out with really good rhythm, your leads are going to be better. They're going to be more in time. And so I would say it was my dad.
Cool. Do you remember the first album you ever bought?
Song Remains the Same.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a Song Remains the Same, Led Zeppelin. Second album was Live Bootleg by Aerosmith.
Nice.
Yeah,
Vinyl?
both live albums. Yeah, oh yeah. There was no CDs.
Yeah.
It was either vinyl or cassette.
Cassette. Yeah, I think cassette.
Yeah.
All right. What is a non-music hobby of yours?
Well, I cook a lot.
Yes.
That goes without saying. I love to go fishing. I like the outdoors. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a forest ranger. So I like anything having to do with lakes and rivers and the ocean. And this is our Costa Rica shirt. This is one of my favorite places in the world to go visit.
Nice.
So I'd say those things right there.
Nice. Maybe you could set up a little cooking station next to the merch table.
I know, right? We'll do a meet and cook.
Meet
and cook.
The meet and cook. That's great.
Meet and cook. I'll cook you dinner.
I'd pay. I'd pay. All right, Shawn, that was great. I appreciate it. I appreciate the insight on relationships. And I think that's a wonderful reminder, constant reminder that artists need, coming up, is just keep building those relationships, right? Keep being good to people.
Yeah.
And find your way.
That's it.
Don't give up. All right, man. All right, for everyone listening, if you want a steadier way to fund your music, head on over to my website as well and grab your free copy of A Musician's Guide to Infinite Banking. It's 1024wealth.com/music. It shows you how to keep money accessible, keep growth compounding, and smooth out this feast or famine season that happens in your life, in the music career, and maybe even self-fund releases, tours, gear on your own timeline. So when you want to talk through it, book a call with me and we'll chat. And you can do that on that page as well. Meanwhile, subscribe on your favorite podcast app to Backstage Money. Share this with one musician who needs to hear it. And until next time, keep your money working and your music moving. Shawn, thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. Thanks for having me.